I showed up for my Sunday visit and the front door was unlocked, which was wrong because my grandfather always locked it. I walked in and called his name and the house was quiet. His leather chair was empty. The Chet Baker record was on the turntable, but the needle was up. I found him in the kitchen, on the floor, next to the stove. His hand was still reaching for the counter like he'd tried to catch himself. I dropped to my knees and grabbed his shoulder and shook him and said his name over and over, and he was cold and I knew he was gone, but I kept shaking him because stopping meant it was real. I sat on the kitchen floor and held his hand and cried until I couldn't breathe. I drove home and walked through the door with my face swollen and my shirt wet from tears. My dad was at the kitchen table on his laptop. I sat down across from him and put my hand on his arm. "Dad, I'm so sorry. Grandpa passed." He looked at my hand on his arm, then back at his screen. He was on the kitchen floor when I got there. I think it was quick. He looked peaceful. I squeezed his arm. "Are you okay?" My dad closed the laptop and sighed like I'd told him the car needed an oil change. "Did you lock the house when you left?" "Did I lock the dad?" He's on the floor. "I'm asking because there are valuables in that house and the door needs to be secured." He picked up his phone and walked to the other room, and I heard him say, "Diane, it's me. Dad finally passed. I need you to get over to the house before anyone else does. Bring boxes." He said, "Finally," like he'd been waiting for this phone call his entire life. I sat at the kitchen table with my dead grandfather's hand still cold on my skin and listened to my father coordinate a robbery, and I walked to my room and closed the door and pressed my back against it and slid to the floor. I drove to St. Jude's that afternoon because there was a 7-year-old girl on the 4th floor who deserved to hear it from someone who was actually sad. Ada was 7 and bald from chemo, and she was sitting cross-legged on her hospital bed taping a new drawing to the wall when I walked in. Same drawing she always made, a room with a big window and sunlight pouring through it. Her room had no window, just a curtain and a fluorescent light, and every drawing she taped to that wall was a room with a window she'd never had. She grinned when she saw me. "Is he coming today?" I braced myself on the doorframe. "Ada, he died." Her grin collapsed into something I never want to see on a child's face again, and the drawing slipped out of her hands and floated to the blanket. She pulled her knees to her chest and pressed her face into them and shook, and I sat on the edge of her bed and wrapped my arm around her shoulders and held her while she fell apart. "He promised me a window," she said into her knees. "I know he did. Is it still going to happen?" "Yeah, Ada. I'm going to make sure it does." "You promise?" "I promise." She held up her pinky, and I hooked mine around it. Her hand was steady, and mine was shaking. "He gave me his coat once," she said, wiping her face. "I was cold, and he took his coat off and wrapped it around me, and said he didn't need it." I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes because I was about to lose it in front of a 7-year-old.
Isprobajte novi Somat Duo Gel s Power Pearls tehnologijom. Učinkovit protiv mrlja za čistoću koju možete vidjeti.
And she had enough to deal with. A nurse caught me in the hallway. "Are you his grandson? The one who came on Sundays?" "Yeah. You're the first family member I've seen in months. His daughter came once and spent the whole visit photographing the furniture." She paused. "He talked about you constantly. Said you were the only honest person in your family." She looked back toward Ada's room. "He was saving for the pediatric wing. 30 years. He told me last month he was running out of time." I gripped the strap of my backpack so hard my hand ached. "Those kids loved him," she said. "More than some of them love their own parents." She hesitated. "Can I tell you something? He stopped eating properly months ago. He was losing weight. We tried to get him to talk to someone about it." "That's not right. He always had food when I came over." She looked at me with pity I didn't understand yet. "He stocked the fridge before your visits and emptied it after. He turned the heat up on Sundays and back down when you left. He didn't want you to worry." I looked at the nurse. "You said he saved for 30 years, for the wing, but his house is freezing and his fridge is empty. Where did the money go?" She shook her head. "I don't know. He told me last month he wasn't sure there'd be enough anymore." I walked out to my car and slammed the door and pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. I screamed into the steering wheel until my throat burned because I should have looked. The funeral was 3 days later, and something was wrong before the first hymn finished. My Aunt Diane whispered to a man I didn't recognize during the processional, and the word appraisal floated back to me over the music. At the reception, I passed my uncle in the hallway and heard him say, "The house alone is worth $500,000, into his phone. My dad was in the corner shaking hands like he was hosting a networking event, and when I walked past the coat room, I saw Diane showing someone photos of my grandfather's furniture on her phone and saying, "I've already called a dealer." I looked around the room at every person talking about money at a funeral, and my hands curled into fists down by my sides. My cousin Garrett was in the second row scrolling his phone during the eulogy, and something snapped in me. I walked down my row and across the aisle and ripped the phone out of his hand. "What the hell are you doing?" He grabbed for it. I held it above my head. "He's He's in a box, Garrett. Your grandfather is in a box 6 feet in front of you and you're checking Instagram. Garrett lunged for the phone and I stepped back and my aunt grabbed my arm and hissed, "Sit down." And my dad appeared beside me with a smile pasted on his face and his fingers digging into my elbow. He steered me back to my row. "Not here." "Then where? When do we get to be honest about how little any of you cared?" He squeezed harder. "Not here." At the reception, I turned a corner and caught him on his phone saying, "Have you looked into the accounts yet?" I stepped in front of him. "Who was that?" He pocketed the phone so fast he fumbled it. "Work. It's Grandpa's funeral. I know what day it is." "Do you? Because you're already counting his money and he's not even in the ground." His jaw tightened and he walked past me and I stood there in the hallway with my fists clenched at my sides and my jaw aching because I was surrounded by family and completely alone. The will reading was 3 days after that and every seat was filled. People I hadn't seen at the house in years were sitting in pressed suits with expectant faces. Diane had a notepad. The lawyer read the document and my name came out 3 times and nobody else's. Every face turned toward me like a school of fish and the hunger in their eyes made my skin crawl. Then the lawyer read the final clause and my hands gripped the armrest so hard the leather creased. "It is my express wish that the entirety of this estate be used to fund the construction of the pediatric wing at St. Jude's Children's Hospital, to be overseen by my grandson." I bit down on the inside of my cheek because if I made a sound, I was going to fall apart in a room full of people who didn't deserve to see it. Aunt Diane's mouth fell open. Garrett shoved off the wall. My dad's hand landed on my shoulder, hard, holding me in place. In the parking lot, Diane got in my face first. He wasn't in his right mind. I knocked her hand off my arm. He beat me at chess every Sunday. My dad tried the reasonable voice. "We'll sort this out as a family. This is sorted." He sorted it. "It goes to the hospital." Garrett stepped up. "That money belongs to all of us, not some hospital." I turned to him. "You want to look a 7-year-old girl with cancer in the face and tell her she can't have a window because you need the money? You want to do that, Garrett? Because I'll drive you there." He didn't answer. I walked to my car and my hands fumbled the keys and I dropped them twice before I could start the engine. I drove to my grandfather's house. The key was under the rock. The door stuck. And when I stepped inside, the house was freezing. I could see my breath in the hallway. I checked the thermostat all the way down. I opened the fridge and found milk, bread, and a jar of peanut butter. And I slammed the door so hard the bottles rattled because this was what his fridge actually looked like when I wasn't coming over. I walked back to the thermostat and turned it on. And when I stepped inside, so hard the bottles rattled because this was what his fridge actually looked like when I wasn't coming over. I walked back to the thermostat and turned it all the way up and stood there listening to the furnace kick on for the first time in God knows how long. And the anger hit me so hard my vision blurred because he'd starved in this house and frozen in this house and performed for me every Sunday so I wouldn't see what his own son was doing to him. The Chet Baker record was still on the turntable from my last visit. I put the needle down and the trumpet filled the cold room, and I stood there with Chet Baker playing for no one in a house that should have been warm, and I made a promise to the empty kitchen that whoever did this was going to answer for it. Not to a lawyer, not to a judge, but to me. I went to the study and sat in his leather chair, the one with the cracked armrest, and something crinkled under the cushion. A note in his handwriting. "Check the floorboard in my study. Don't let them find it first." My heart slammed. He knew. They'd come for it, and he'd hidden something for me. I pried up the floorboard with a butter knife and found a wooden box with scratches around the lock. I opened it and it was empty. Someone got here first. I hurled the box across the room and it hit the wall and cracked in half. My dad showed up at the kitchen table with his reasonable voice and his folded hands. "Your grandfather was confused. He wouldn't have wanted his life savings going to a building. That's vanity, not charity." I hit the table so hard the salt shaker jumped. "He saved for 30 years to build sick kids a hospital wing, and you're calling that vanity?" Mom tried the soft approach. "You don't want to tear this family apart over a hospital wing, do you? Ada is 7, Mom. She's never seen the sky from her hospital bed. Grandpa promised her a window. You want me to go back there and tell her the window's not coming because my family wants the money?" They stared at me. I shoved my chair back and grabbed my keys. "Ada is waiting for that window, and I'm not letting you take it from her." I walked out. I drove to the house and found a moving truck in the driveway. Aunt Diane was directing movers to carry carry the dining table out the front door. I blocked the truck with my car, got out, and walked straight to the back of the moving truck. The leather chair was inside, already loaded. I climbed into the truck and dragged it back out myself, scraping it down the ramp, and carried it back into the study. Get your truck out of his driveway. We're just clearing. You're stealing from a dead man while his body is still warm. I caught the dining table's edge and dragged it back through the front door so hard the legs gouged the hardwood. She called the movers off and left, but the study had been ransacked. Drawers open, floorboard pried up. She'd found the same empty box I had. Garrett caught me in the school parking lot after practice. You think you're special because you showed up on Sundays? He shoved me backward into my car, hard enough to set off the alarm. I shoved him back harder. Don't touch me. He swung and I ducked and his fist dented my car door and he screamed and grabbed his hand. Yeah, I think I'm special, Garrett. I think I'm the only person in this family who treated Grandpa like a person instead of an ATM. And you broke your hand on my car, so you're going to remember this conversation every time you make a fist. He cradled his hand and backed away, and I picked up my keys off the asphalt where I dropped them and got in my car and drove home with my hands still shaking on the wheel. The family's lawyer filed to contest the will on grounds of diminished capacity, and they'd found a doctor willing to testify. The hearing was in 9 days. I punched the dashboard so hard my knuckles split because they were going to call my grandfather crazy so they could take money from dying kids, and the clock was running. My grandfather's housekeeper, Gloria, had been with him for 20 years. She answered on the first ring and invited me over before I even finished asking. She poured tea and her hands shook the whole time. Your father came every Tuesday. He brought papers for your grandfather to sign. What kind of papers? Financial documents, transfers. I set the teacup down because my hands had gone numb and the cup was going to end up on the floor. His eyes were bad. He couldn't read the fine print. Your father told him they were tax documents. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. How much? I don't know the amounts. I just know every Tuesday your grandfather had less and your father drove away with more. I paced her kitchen because if I sat still, I was going to put my fist through her wall. Did he know? Did Grandpa know what was happening to him? Gloria looked at the floor. At the end, I think he suspected. He started hiding things. I stopped pacing. What things? Papers. A letter. He told me he put it somewhere safe. She paused. The Bible on the second shelf. He hollowed it out. The lawyer gave me access to the bank records, and I spread 5 years of statements across the study floor. I went through every page on my hands and knees with a red marker, circling every transfer to my father's account. Hundreds of thousands. I found one from the month Grandpa asked me to drive him to buy a winter coat. He checked every price tag twice and put back the one he wanted because it was too expensive. He was cold because his son was stealing from him. I threw the statement across the room and it fluttered to the ground. I found another from the week he told me the wing might have to wait a little longer. 30 years of saving for Ada's window, and my dad was draining it. I sat on the floor surrounded by paper, and my face was wet, and I didn't bother wiping it. On the desk beside me was a drawing Ada had given my grandfather, the yellow room with the smiley face sun, pinned to his corkboard with a thumbtack. He'd kept it right where he could see it from his chair. I was in the study one night going through more records when the front door opened. Footsteps, heavy and fast. I killed the desk lamp and dropped behind the leather chair. Through the gap, I watched my father walk into the study, go straight to the desk, and start pulling drawers and dumping them. He swept books off shelves. He fed papers into the fireplace, and the flames lit up his face, hollow and mechanical. A record sleeve fell, and he stepped on it. Chet Baker. The crack echoed through the room, and I bit my arm to stay silent. He checked the floorboard, kicked the empty box against the wall, and left. I sat behind the chair, shaking. My father's shoe print was on my grandfather's favorite record. He was burning the evidence I needed for the hearing, and I had 4 days left. I drove to Gloria's house at 6 a.m. My aunt threatened you. She opened the door in her bathrobe. She said if I talked, "You're not alone in this. I watched my dad burn documents in the study last night." Her eyes went wide. The Bible. Did he find? No, it's still there. Go, now, before he goes back. I looked at her. Will you testify at the hearing? A long pause. I'm scared. I know, but if you don't, they win. The wing dies. Ada gets nothing. Another pause. Find the letter first, then ask me again. I drove to the house and ripped the Bible off the second shelf and cracked it open. Hollow pages, sealed envelope, folder of documents. I sat in the leather chair and tore open the envelope. 3 pages, shaky handwriting. My father's name came first, with every forged signature and power of attorney abuse and transfer documented down to the dollar. I read each line and my grip tightened until the paper creased. Diane's name came next, with the jewelry and silverware and furniture she'd sold while Grandpa was in the ICU. My eyes burned. Garrett's name last, with the car and the forged title. By the The third name, my face was soaked. The last paragraph, build it for Ada and the kids on the 4th floor. Build it because they deserve windows. I'm leaving everything to you because you're the only one who came on Sundays because you wanted to, not because you wanted something. The hearing was tomorrow. I walked into the hospital development office and put the will on the desk. My grandfather wanted every dollar to go to the pediatric wing. The family is contesting the will and the hearing is tomorrow. If I don't sign these papers today, a judge freezes the accounts in the morning and the wing never gets built. The director read the clause twice. He talked about this wing for 20 years. We thought it would never happen. She slid the paperwork across and my pen shook so badly she steadied my hand. I signed every line. On the way out, I stopped at the 4th floor and pressed my palm flat against Ada's window. She was asleep inside, drawings taped around her like wallpaper. Soon, I whispered. Then I called a family dinner. The hearing was in the morning. If this was going to happen, it had to happen tonight.
Hold up.
Told them I was ready to discuss the estate, and every one of them came. Diane brought wine. Garrett helped set the table with his hand still wrapped from punching my car. My dad clapped me on the back. I knew you'd come around. I'd set the table. Diane's seat, a jewelry appraisal for the emerald ring she stole from the ICU. Garrett's seat, the title transfer for the car he forged and sold. Dad's seat, 5 years of bank statements, every theft circled in red. At the head of the I stood up. You want to talk about the estate? Let's start with what you already took. My voice filled the room. Aunt Diane, Grandma's emerald ring, stolen from the jewelry box while Grandpa was in the ICU, sold for $1,800, worth $12,000. Diane's glass shook. I didn't. The appraisal is right there. I turned to Garrett. The car. You forged his signature on the title and sold it. Garrett shoved back from the table and his chair cracked against the wall. You don't know what you're talking about. I called the buyer, Garrett. He told me a kid showed up with the key and paid cash. He lunged across the table. His hand caught my collar and he dragged me forward and my ribs hit the edge and plates went flying and wine splashed across the evidence. I grabbed his wrist and twisted and we crashed into the china cabinet and the glass doors exploded. He pinned me against the wall with his forearm on my chest and I drove my knee into his thigh and shoved him off and he went down over a chair. I grabbed a dining chair and held it between us. Sit down. The chair legs rattled because every muscle in my body was pulled tight. He sat on the floor. I turned to my dad. Every Tuesday, 5 years, you sat across from a man who couldn't see, and you put papers in front of him and told him they were tax forms. My voice cracked. He couldn't afford a coat, Dad. I drove him to the store and he checked every price tag twice because he thought he was broke. And the whole time it was you. I slammed both hands on the table. He saved for 30 years to build dying children a hospital wing, and you stole it from them. Dad stood up. He wasn't in his right mind. He was confused and he beat me at chess every Sunday, Dad. He knew every kid on the 4th floor by name. He hollowed out a Bible to hide evidence from you because he was sharper than every person in this room. You stole from your own father. He didn't need a hospital wing. He needed a winter coat. He was freezing in his own house because you took everything. He was old and he was dying and that money was going to be wasted on children, on kids with cancer, on a girl named Ada who draws pictures of windows because she's never seen the sky from her bed. That's who you stole from. Dad's face was red and twisted and his composure was completely gone. You want to know the best part? I pulled the receipt from my pocket and threw it on the table. The money is gone. I signed the donation papers this morning. Every last dollar goes to St. Jude's. Construction starts in April. You spent 2 months fighting over money that was never going to be yours. Diane went white. Garrett stared from the floor. Dad grabbed the receipt and his face drained of color reading it. You gave it away? To dying children. To kids who grabbed his hand when he walked through the door. To a girl named Ada who shows him drawings of a window she's never had. My voice broke. He loved those kids more than he loved any of you, and he was right to. Dad pointed at me. You are a child. What is she doing here? He'd seen Gloria. She walked in from the kitchen, coat on, folder in her shaking hands, and she looked my father in the eye. I watched you do it. Every Tuesday for 5 years. I watched you put papers in front of a man who couldn't see what he was signing. She set the folder on the table. Copies of everything. My mom spoke from the end of the table. I believed her. Every head turned. Mascara streaked down her face. I believed her because I already knew. I've known for years. She looked at my dad. You told me it was handled. You told me he was fine. Dad looked at Mom, and his whole face cracked open. You want to know why Grandpa left everything to me? My voice was raw and wrecked. Because I'm the only person in this family who showed up when there was nothing to take. They left one by one. Diane first. Garrett limping. Mom walked out without looking at Dad. He was last. He stood in the study doorway looking at the leather chair, and I said, "Don't." And he closed his mouth and walked out. Gloria stood by the table with her hands finally still. "Thank you," I said. She shook her head. "He asked me to do one thing. This was it." She looked at the leather chair. "He would have been proud of you tonight." I pressed my hand over my mouth because those were the words I'd needed to hear from someone in my family my entire life, and they came from his housekeeper. I drove to the hospital. 4th floor, lights dimmed. Ada's room at the end of the hall. She was asleep with her drawings taped around her bed. I touched the yellow one with my fingertip, the room with the big window and the smiley-faced sun. Then I drove to the house and sat in his leather chair and put the Chet Baker record on the turntable and dropped the needle. The trumpet filled the cold study, and I closed my eyes and listened the way he taught me, and for a few minutes the room wasn't empty. I never really liked fishing when I was a little kid, but man, do I love it now. Check it out, Dad. I showed him my bait, which was a huge worm. This guy's fatter than normal. It's sure to catch something. My dad grinned at me. Check out what I'm using. I cracked up. That is the most miserable, pathetic-looking worm I've ever seen. How much you want to bet I catch something before you, big shot? I'll take that bet, Dad. We both sat in comfortable silence and waited. Then he felt a pull first. Haha, I knew it. My pathetic worm wins out.
I hated coming to see my daddy at prison, but this time was different. It was time for our family to finally get the vengeance we deserve. Daddy had that look of sheer rage and determination with a thirst for blood. Listen up, Chester. You ready to raise some hell, boy? Hell yeah, Daddy. I've been able to do a lot of recon from behind bars, and I've given your cousin Cletus very specific directions. I need you to follow them to the letter. Got it? Yes, sir. I'll do whatever you tell me, sir. He leaned in close, making sure the nearest prison guard couldn't hear him. When I say I want you to rain down hell upon these bastards for what they did to us, that's an understatement. Got it? I got real nervous because the last thing on the planet I would ever want to do would be to let my daddy down. Yes, sir. I will destroy these bastards. It's up to you to avenge our family, son. We're all counting on you. The reputation and survival of our family rests on your shoulders, boy. I understand, Daddy. Come hell or high water, I won't let the family down. An hour later, my cousin Cletus picked me up in his bulletproof SUV. Wow, Cleet, this ride is so sick. Are you ready to ride it out into hell? Yeah, Chester, now you're talking. This baby handles like a tank. You'll be doing the driving, so you better get used to it. I got into the driver's seat and we drove off, both of us more determined and angry than ever. I can literally taste the need for blood, Cleet. I've been so pissed off for so long that I had to spend so much time in that damn hospital. It's time to honor our family. Let's go.
A few hours later, we loaded up our truck with the fish we caught and started driving down the winding, swampy roads. Great job, son. As usual, I'm proud of you. I was confused. For what? You're the one that caught all the fish. That doesn't matter. I'm proud of the man you're becoming. You're an honest, hard-working, great young man. I appreciate that, Dad. Love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. Next time, I want to take you fishing off of a hoverboat in the Everglades. That would be awesome. We came to a stop sign, took a right turn, then through my side mirror, I saw an SUV rapidly approaching behind us. My dad hit the gas and got our truck up to about 45 miles per hour when the SUV sped up next to us, and I saw the passenger side window come down, and a man wearing a ski mask aimed a gun at us. My dad saw it and swerved. Hold on! My dad tried to escape the SUV, but they were right next to us. We floored it and sped up ahead. Then the SUV charged up right next to us. The masked gunman aimed his shotgun down at our front tire and boom, boom, he shot out our front tire. My dad yelled out, "Hold on tight, we might flip." My dad struggled to maintain control of the steering wheel, but lost it. I put both of my hands on the dashboard to steady myself, but our truck veered off of the wet road, spun out and flipped over onto its side. I hit my head on the roof of the truck and saw black. I woke up to the sound of footsteps crunching on broken glass, looked up and saw Chester with a weird-looking contraption wire around his jaw and head. The masked gunman was standing next to him as my dad and I were sprawled out on the pavement. My knees were both badly cut up and bruised, and I felt a shooting pain traveling up my back. I gritted my teeth, glanced over, and saw my dad was trembling in pain from the wreck, and his arm was bent in a terrible shape. He glanced at me and whispered, "Stay strong, son." Chester glared at me and grinned. I have been waiting a long time for this day. The masked man took off his mask to reveal a man with a spiderweb tattoo below his eye and a mohawk. "Your daddy would be real proud of what you're about to do, Chester." "Thanks for saying that, Cletus. Take out your phone and start filming." Cletus followed orders and handed over his shotgun to Chester. My dad knew we could do nothing, so he flipped off Chester. "You're a pathetic, weak man, and you always will be." Chester's grin faded. "And when you lay your head down to rest every night, you will see my face
Snažen protiv najtvrdokornijih mrlja. Persil.
Turn up the radio.
you and reminding you that you're at heart just a little bitch. I felt insane fear, not so much for myself, but for my dad. Chester aimed the shotgun down at my dad. Revenge is best done served cold. He opened fire, and I looked away. A surge of pain rushed through me, and I couldn't help but weep. I grabbed onto my dad's lifeless hand, and had flashes of myself as a little kid, and him doing all the kind things he did for me. The time he brought me back toys from a business trip, or the Sunday mornings he'd make blueberry pancakes for me, and we'd watch cartoons and laugh together. Those memories hurt my heart that much more. I was overwhelmed with loss, and in that moment I thought, I'd be better off leaving this planet as well, just so I could join my dad. Chester and Cletus grabbed me and dragged me further into the swamps. Cletus giggled. "I did this to my high school bully when I was around your age. My daddy calls it stringing up a sardine and using it for bait." Chester let out a loud cackle. I felt a strange, cold emptiness now that my dad was gone. I had gone from feeling the pain of it to focusing all of my feelings on what I needed to do now to survive. My knees were on fire with how bad they were stinging, and I couldn't walk. They dragged me out to a tree that had a long rope attached to the end of a branch that hung over a swampy lake. They tied my wrists to the rope and shoved me out towards the end of the branch, so I was dangling by my wrists over the lake. I felt an intense strain on my wrists as they were holding my entire body weight. Chester took one last look at me. "That's what you get for messing with the wrong family, bitch." They both started walking away, and I called out to them, "Hey Chester, I know you think this will be the last time you see me, but it won't be. I'm coming for you." They both laughed. "Yeah, right after those 3 alligators eat your face off." I looked down and saw 3 large gators circling below me. I looked up at the rope and saw that it was starting to tear. I desperately tried catapulting myself over to the shore, but the rope wouldn't budge. I was truly stuck. I swung my legs up towards the tree branch, trying to latch onto something, and failed. I heard gator teeth chomping down, showing the power of their jaws and scaring the living hell out of me. I stopped swinging and tried to calm down my body so I didn't get too exhausted. The rope slipped and broke another inch, and I was now hanging on by a thread. I was well beyond horrified and completely out of options. I quietly prayed to God and to my father's spirit. I got choked up thinking about him and how he went out. Whoop! The rope slipped down another inch, barely hanging on by a thread at this point. The gators were chomping louder and harder, knowing that their prey was inches away from them. I had to lift my legs and bend my knees just so they wouldn't leap up out of the water and bite onto my ankle. I grimaced in agony as the scorching hot sun beat down on my face. I glanced up at the rope one last time and saw it snap. I fell directly down onto 3 hungry alligators. As soon as I hit the water, I started throwing every punch and kick imaginable and flailing around like a maniac. I was underwater, looked right in front of me, and saw the chilling, piercing eyes of a gator charging right at my face with its jaws wide open. The sound of 2 gunshots rang out and scattered the 3 gators away. I turned around and saw a motorboat buzzing towards me, looked closer, and saw a woman with long black hair and a traditional Seminole shirt with cool, multicolored jewelry on her wrists. She was carrying a rifle and put her hand down to me. I gripped onto it, and she pulled me up onto the boat. I laid back, exhausted, speechless, my adrenaline still pumping through the roof. I stared up at a blinding sun, whispered, "Thank you," and passed out. I woke up on a bed inside of a room which seemed like a small apartment and heard 2 hushed female female voices from the other room. You need to call the police and get him out of our place. No, someone just left him for dead. He doesn't have any serious injuries, just his knees are banged up. Besides, you know how the cops treat us. They'll think that someone from our tribe is responsible for this. Fine, whatever. You take care of him then. Fine, I will. The door opened and my breath caught when I saw her walk in. She had a bowl of soup and some fresh towels. Good, you're awake. My name's Tallulah. How you feeling? I thought of everything that just happened and didn't have an answer for her. Here's some chicken soup in case you get hungry. I put some disinfectant on your knees and bandaged them up for you. I was blown away by this woman's kindness. I can't thank you enough for saving my life. Can I ask what happened? I told her everything. Her sweet angelic eyes got so big after she found out what happened to me and my dad, and she shed a tear. I understand what it's like to lose a parent. She held my hand, which happily surprised me. My mother passed away in a car wreck and my father is overseas in the military. I haven't heard from him in over 6 months. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you going to call the police? I had to really think about that. Normally I would, but this situation is different. Even if Chester gets arrested, they'd just put him behind bars with his father, brothers, and uncle. I actually think a small part of him probably did this so the cops would do that and he would get to hang out with his family again. That's why I won't. I'm going to handle this myself. That's what my dad would have done. She nodded in understanding. Once I could walk again, we headed over to the crash site and I was terrified to see my dad's body. I stayed strong, approached the wreck, and kept remembering what he said to me right before they shot him. Stay strong, son. I turned to stone inside, gently lifted my dad's body, and carried him over to the most beautiful tree I could find. I buried him there and said a prayer. Tallulah was waiting for me in her car. I got in and she drove straight to Rico's gym and pulled up in front. I had to ask, "Can I see you again?" We exchanged numbers and she softly said, "I hope you find what you're looking for." Me too. We shared a smile and I stepped out. When I entered Rico's gym, I was flooded with memories of my dad dropping me off here and learning how to fight hand-to-hand combat. I saw Rico sitting by the boxing ring. He took one look at me with all cuts, bruises, and bandages, and immediately knew something had really gone wrong. Have we moved way past hand-to-hand? I nodded yes. Would you say we're somewhere between hell and a handgun? I nodded yes again. We went into his back office and I filled him in. When I mentioned what happened to Dad, he closed his eyes, took a moment of silence, and held onto a pair of military dog tags in his hand. After several long moments of silence, he looked up at me. "I have a very important question for you. I'm listening. Are you willing to risk serving a life sentence in prison to get payback?" That's not even a question. I was hoping you'd say that. Time to take your training to the next level. No more hand-to-hand combat. It's time for some knife-to-neck and bullet-to-head training. The first thing he drilled into my head was to be able to reload under pressure.
Želim vam nešto pokazati. Uvijek smo se sramile nečeg tako učestalog. Svrbi, pecka? Može.
Took the bullet magazine out of my gun, reloaded it, then aimed. I did that 55 times up until the point to where I couldn't feel my fingertips and they were black from bullet grease. I didn't care though. I saw Chester holding that shotgun and my guts churned. Then we went out to a shooting range and he explained, "Close your left eye, relax your wrist and trigger finger. Take in a deep breath, aim, decide, exhale, and fire." I followed his instructions and was way off from the middle of the target. Again, I shot hundreds of bullets, got very comfortable and started nailing the center of the target, especially when I pictured Chester's stupid face on it.
Cletus and myself sat across from the Seminole Reservation in our SUV. Damn, Cleet, you smart as hell, boy. I never would have thunk to cover my tracks. I would have just drove on home, sat on my couch, sipped on some moonshine, and turned on the YouTube. It wasn't my idea. It was written in your daddy's instructions. I'm just following what he said to do. My daddy's always been so smart. He's smarter than Albert Einstein. Do you think I done made him proud? I think so. But you about to make him even more proud? Hell yeah. Gotta honor the family. That Seminole girl kinda fine, right? Yeah. I'd like me some of that for sure. I always laughed at my cousin Cleet, that boy be pimpin'. I can't believe he survived them gators, man. That girl must have helped him out for sure. I ain't never been helped out by no girls. They always ignore me. You'll find you a pretty little wife someday. I got other things to do first. So what do you want to do about this? The only thing there is to do, which is exactly what my daddy would have done. Raise hell and get mine. Your daddy would be so damn proud of the way you talk, Chester. Let's go, boy. I grabbed my handgun and a taser just in case she wants to get a little feisty. We slipped on our ski masks, then waited by the front door. After about 20 minutes, the front door opened and Cletus charged in first. I still have a wicked limp from staying too long at that dumb hospital, so I was always a step behind Cleet. Go! Go! We rushed inside and saw the cute one cooking, and what looked like her sister was being handled by Cletus. Get your filthy hands off of me! The cute one done hurled a pot of steaming hot water from the stove at me, and I barely ducked in time. Damn, I like 'em feisty. I aimed my gun and put a bullet in the wall beside the cute one's head. Both girls stopped cold, looking all scared. I loved seeing them shake and squirm and all. It gives me the goosebumps, the good kind. All right, now that I have your attention, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna call up your new little boyfriend and get his ass over here. My cousin and I have a job to finish.
The second I saw I had gotten a text from Tallulah, my heart skipped a beat. But something seemed a little weird because she asked me to meet her at an abandoned theme park out in the swamps. I told Rico, and he grew concerned. How long have you known this girl? We just met, but we shared something really intense with her, saving my life and burying my dad and all. But you're right, something seems off. Rico thought about it. If it is a trap, we could use it as an opportunity. Text her back and tell her you'll meet her there. Tallulah and I made plans to meet in front of the House of Mirrors. Rico and I scoped the abandoned amusement park from a few hundred yards away through binoculars. Then my heart sank when I saw Tallulah and her sister being shoved by Chester and Cletus towards the House of Mirrors. Yep, definitely a trap. Here's what we're gonna do. Walk up to the front entrance, pretend that you think it's a date. I'll be nearby, ready to attack. If one of the guys comes out of the entrance, you take out the first one. I'll rush in and take out whoever's left. Copy? Copy. An hour later, I walked into the abandoned amusement park through a hole in the chain link fence. I was dressed like I was going on a date. I held a bottle of wine in case they were watching. My handgun was behind my back in my belt line. My hands trembled as I waited. Then Tallulah approached me from the opposite direction, fear in her eyes. Hey, she nervously said. Hi. I felt terrible that she got dragged into this and knew she couldn't just tell me the truth because they had her sister. Do you want to go inside and check it out? I kept my hand behind my back near my gun, ready for anything. Sure. We took 2 steps towards the entrance and she stopped, pulled me in close and whispered, Chester and his cousin are inside waiting for you. They have my sister. I appreciate you telling me and don't worry. I already know. Just go in and when bullets start flying, duck down, grab your sister and run out as fast as you can. It won't be that easy. They have my sister in some kind of contraption. If she moves, she's dead. I froze. Definitely did not expect that. My fear deepened. Okay, I'll figure it out. Let's go in. We entered and saw a terrifying room that was dark, except for a wide open space that had hundreds of mirrors reflecting in different directions. I saw her sister tied to a wooden chair and crying. She had a gag in her mouth and there was a rope that was tied around her neck. Then I looked to my left and saw Cletus. He was wearing a face mask with a skull on it and aimed a shotgun. Then he moved and completely disappeared. The reflection of the mirrors was creating wicked delusions. Then I saw Chester through a mirror, standing right next to me. He was wearing a freaky-looking Killer Clowns from Outer Space outfit and he was grinning. I quickly pulled out my gun and aimed it at him. Then he also disappeared. I was trapped in a nightmare of illusion. Chester called out, Hey buddy, so glad you could make it. First, I just wanted to congratulate you for surviving the chomping alligators. That must have taken some serious balls. Good job. As he spoke, Tallulah and I walked around the space, searching for the real Chester, not a reflection. And you even got a little girlfriend out of the deal. She likes me, but she's not really my type. I saw what I think looked like the real Chester in the corner of the room. I quickly aimed and took a shot. I busted the mirror to pieces. Chester laughed. Way to go, John Wayne. I looked to my left and saw Cletus's reflection approaching me. I turned in a panic and took aim. Then I felt a hard object come down hard across the back of my neck. I dropped my gun and fell to my knees. I wasn't totally out, but was dazed. Tallulah picked up my gun and protected me. I realized in that moment that I already loved that woman. I heard footsteps, whipped around to see Cletus aiming his gun at the back of my head. 2 gunshots rattled off. I turned to see Rico had fired them. Cletus clutched onto his chest. Blood trickled through his fingers and he fell to a knee. Aw man, this kinda sucks. I'm not supposed to lose. I'm special. He dropped down face first, dead. Rico rushed over to her sister, cut through the rope and set her free. Go, get them out of here. I'll handle Chestnut. I hate that name. Tallulah kissed me, then ran out with Rico and her sister. Chester saw his dead cousin on the ground and got enraged. Oh, I am gonna enjoy this. I am gonna enjoy killing the crap out of you. Killing you real hard. What does that even mean, you fucking idiot? I saw reflection after reflection, still searching for him. Then I heard a gunshot ring out and felt a painful sting in my side. I looked down at my stomach and saw blood. Then I realized where dumb little Chestnut was, based on where he shot the bullet from. I charged towards the left corner of the room, then saw the reflection of Chester's scorpion tattoo on his wrist, and realized that it wasn't actually his reflection, it was him.
Svježina koja traje i traje. Nivea Fresh dezodorans sa zaštitom Derma Active pruža učinkovitu 48-satnu antibakterijsku
"You about to be real dead, you fool." He aimed his gun at my head and pulled the trigger. At the very last split second, I moved an inch to the right, missing the bullet by half an inch. He knew he was screwed because I had gotten too close. Aw, crap, man. I grabbed his wrist, pulled him out into the open and slammed a right hook so hard into Chester's face, his jaw that was broken from before broke again in 11 new places. I kicked him so hard across the ribs, I heard 3 of them snap. I grabbed the back of his head and slammed his face into the mirror, shattering it into hundreds of pieces. I dragged him across the floor and thought about how ruthless he was with my dad and how I wanted to get my payback. Chester knew that I had the upper hand and grew terrified. "How could you bully me like this? It's not my fault that I was born as a smaller person, man. Shut the hell up, you little dick. I don't have a father anymore because of you." I felt a sharp sadness arise in my gut and felt the sting of the gunshot wound on my side. I looked stupid little Chester in the eye and thought about what to do. Then it clicked. It would be way too easy to just kill you, and it would be way too easy to take you to prison so you can be with your dad and brothers. So the only option I can see is complete paralysis, so you live in abject hell for the rest of your life, you sloppy turd. I pinned his face down into the floor, slapped on a wicked jujitsu move, and that did the job. He wouldn't move again from the neck down. I dragged him out in front of Rico, Tallulah, and her sister. Chestnut here had a little accident with his spine. We tossed Chester into the trunk, and I found the meanest, nastiest long-term care facility I could find and dropped him on their doorstep. The next day, I went to visit my dad's grave with Tallulah and Rico and knelt down to him. "Hey Dad, I'm happy to say our little situation has been handled, and I know you're looking down, and I hope you're proud of me." I saw a blue jay land on the tree beside me, and I smiled. It looked right at me and tilted its head, just like my dad used to do. I kissed his grave. "I knew you were watching." 6 months later, I stopped by Rico's gym. He looked up at me from the boxing ring and smiled. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." "Hey Rico, so, since my dad's not around, I have a bit of a problem." "What is it now?" "I need someone to walk me down the aisle at my wedding." He smiled as Tallulah walked in behind me. Rico looked at both of us, happy as can be. "I'd be honored." The lights to the gym suddenly cut out. The only light was from the front windows. I heard a huge explosion from above, looked up and saw 10 armed gunmen in ski masks lowering down into the room, machine guns aimed. Above them, being lifted down by a wire, was stupid little Chester in his remote-controlled wheelchair. Seriously? Chester's back, bitches! My dad's voice ripped through the house so loud I sat straight up in bed. He never raised his voice, not once in 16 years. I pulled the blanket against my chest and cracked my door open and pressed my face against the gap. Dad was pacing the living room with his phone against his ear and a locked briefcase gripped in his other hand. Mom was standing in the kitchen doorway with tears running down her face. I said they are not getting anywhere near my family. Dad spun toward the counter and swept a glass off the edge, and it shattered against the wall, and Mom stumbled backward. My hands tightened on the doorframe. Then Dad saw me through the crack. The fury drained from his face in one beat. His shoulders dropped, his jaw unclenched. He crossed the room and crouched in front of me and put his hands on my shoulders, and the glass was still on the kitchen floor behind him. "Hey buddy, go pack a bag. We're going on a trip." His voice was warm and steady, and it terrified me more than the shouting because the man who'd just thrown a glass was smiling at me like nothing had happened. Fresh start. Dad said it 3 times during the drive, and each time he gripped the steering wheel tighter. My sister Bea was asleep in the back seat with her stuffed rabbit pressed against her cheek. Mom was staring out the passenger window, chewing the inside of her lip. Nobody had spoken for the last hour, except Dad. His words said vacation, but his knuckles said something else. "This is going to be great." The 4 of us with no distractions. His knuckles were white on the wheel. The dirt road twisted so deep into the woods the GPS had died 20 minutes ago. Trees pressed against both sides of the road so tight the headlights barely cut through. Dad pulled up to the cabin and killed the engine, and the silence was instant and enormous. Bea woke up and pressed her face against the window. Is this it? Can we go swimming? Tomorrow, baby. Dad carried the bags in with one hand. The other gripped a locked briefcase that he hadn't let go of since we left the house. He shoved it under his bed before touching anything else. When he opened the trunk, I caught the smell of gasoline on his hands. Why do you smell like gas? Filled up on the way. Pump was broken. I carried Bea and her rabbit inside. The cabin was small and clean and smelled like pine. For a second, I almost believed the vacation story. Dad unpacked groceries while Mom made the beds, and Bea ran from room to room, opening every drawer. I wandered out back and found the lake. The water was still and black. I crouched at the edge, and the trees reflected back like a mirror. Dad came up behind me and put his hand on my shoulder. I used to fish here when I was your age. He pulled a folding knife from his pocket and crouched by the shore. He picked up a stick and started whittling. My dad taught me to gut a fish with a knife just like this one. Want me to show you tomorrow? Yeah, he handed me the knife. Keep it. Every man should have a good knife. He showed me how to hold it and clean the blade on your jeans and fold it one-handed. The whole time he was smiling, the real smile, the one that reached his eyes. I folded the knife and put it in my pocket. The weight of it pressed against my thigh. His hand was still on my shoulder, and I leaned into it, and the desperate hope that everything wrong at home was going to be fine here made my chest ache. Then we went inside, and Dad locked the front door with a padlock. Not the deadbolt, but a padlock from the inside. The click rang through the whole cabin, and I flinched. Mom saw the padlock, and her whole body went rigid. Just for safety, Dad said. We're in the middle of nowhere, and if anyone comes up that road, you come tell me first. Why would anyone come up here? They won't. But if they do, he held out his hand. Phones. What? No distractions this week. That's the whole point of a fresh start. Mom handed hers over without looking at him. I held mine for a beat too long, and Dad's eyes locked onto me, and something behind them flickered. Jesse. I handed it over. He put all 3 phones in a lockbox and slid it under the bed in his room. Bea tugged his sleeve hard. Daddy, can I call Grandma? Not this week, baby. Why? Because this week is just for us. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, and his face changed when he saw the screen. He silenced it and shoved it back. Who was that? Nobody. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The dread crept up my spine, and my hands went cold for the first time. We ate dinner without talking. The wind scraped branches against the boarded windows. Dad made pasta that night. Bea talked about the lake and the trees and her rabbit. Dad smiled at her and responded to everything she said. He set his fork down with a click. Some ground rules for the trip. Mom's hand froze over her plate. No going outside after dark. No exceptions. He looked at each of us. No leaving the table during meals. He looked at me specifically. No talking after 8 p.m. That's insane, I said. It's peaceful. That's the difference. We can't talk after 8? You can talk, just not loudly. Mom put her hand on my arm under the table and squeezed. The squeeze said, shut up. That squeeze said everything her face didn't. After dinner, I cornered her in the hallway. What's going on? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Your father's been under a lot of stress at work. This isn't stress. He padlocked the door. Just do what he says. She grabbed both my hands, and her grip was shaking. Please, Jesse. It'll be over soon. What'll be over? What's he afraid of? People. What people? The kind that don't knock. She walked away. Bea was in the bunk room arranging her rabbit on the pillow. Jesse, this cabin is so cool. Can we go fishing tomorrow? Yeah, Bea, we can go fishing. I dropped onto the edge of her bed and she climbed into my lap. The knife in my pocket pressed against my thigh. The padlock on the front door pressed against my mind. My 7-year-old sister was asking about fishing while the fear crushed my ribs. Hammering jolted me awake. Dad was in the living room with a box of nails and a hammer, and he was nailing a board across the front window. What are you doing? Keeping us safe. From what? He drove the next nail so hard the wall cracked. There are animals out here. Bears. I don't want Bea near the glass. I gripped the door frame because there hadn't been bears in this part of the state for 30 years. He nailed the second window, then the third. Bea trailed him from room to room, clutching her rabbit. Daddy, are the bears really scary? Very scary, baby. Scarier than the dark. Much scarier. She held her rabbit tighter and pressed close to his leg. He put his hand on her head without breaking stride and kept nailing. The tenderness of that gesture made my skin crawl. The same hand hammering boards over windows was resting gently on his daughter's hair. He hung blankets over every window, and the cabin went from bright to dim to cave dark, and Bea came back to me, clutching her rabbit. Jesse, it's dark. And he crouched in front of her and said, I know, baby. We're playing a game. Whoever keeps the blankets up the longest wins. She believed believed him. New rules, no going near the doors, no looking behind the blankets, no asking about the phones, no talking about home. Every rule was delivered in the same calm voice, like he was reading a menu. Mom cooked lunch, and her hands were shaking so badly she dropped a pan. Fine. Jesse isn't fine. He's asking questions. Then stop him from asking questions. This isn't what you said. You said a week. You said it would blow over and we'd go home. Plans change. I want to go home. A sound. Sharp. Skin on skin. Mom gasped. Then silence. I shoved the door open. Mom was holding her cheek. Dad stood over her with his hand still raised. The horror hit me like ice water because the look on his face wasn't anger. He looked annoyed, like she'd interrupted a meeting. Go back to your room, Jesse. You hit her. I said go back to your room. Mom shook her head at me, tears streaming, mouthing, go. I went. I dropped onto my bunk, shaking. I pulled the fishing knife from my pocket and opened it. The blade caught the light, not to use it, to remind myself I had something. Bea was coloring on the floor. Jesse, is Daddy mad? No. He sounds mad. He's just tired. Can we go fishing? Maybe later. I waited until midnight. Dad was asleep in the chair by the front door with the hammer across his lap. I crept to the back bedroom and woke Mom and Bea. We're leaving. Mom shook her head. He'll hear us. The window in Bea's room. It's the only one he didn't nail from the outside. I carried Bea to the window. She held her rabbit against her chest. I slid the window up inch by inch. Night air rushed in cold and clean. I lifted Bea onto the sill. Climb down. I'm right behind you. The floor creaked behind me. Dad was standing in the doorway. Put her down. Bea started crying. Daddy, put her down, Jesse. Now. His voice was calm. I lowered Bea back inside. Dad walked to the window and closed it. He pulled a handful of nails from his pocket and hammered it shut. Bea was sobbing in the corner. Mom pressed her hand over her mouth. He nailed every remaining window in the cabin. The padlock on the front door and the nails in every window meant the cabin was sealed. The hammering took 15 minutes, and each nail was another door closing. When he was done, the cabin was sealed. No way in, no way out. He sat back in his chair by the front door. I'm doing this for us. I cornered Mom in the hallway. What is going on? She grabbed both my hands. Her grip was shaking. There were threats before we left. Phone calls. Someone threw something through the living room window. What? Your father said people were coming after us because of something at his company. He said the cabin was the only place they couldn't find us. The fear in her voice was real. The shaking in her hands was real. The padlocks, the nails, the phones. It all clicked. My dad was rained out, and for the first time since we arrived, he looked like his lap, looking exhausted. Dad, he looked up. I'm sorry I fought you. His face changed. The tension drained out, and for the first time since we arrived, he looked like my dad again. You understand? People are coming. You're keeping us safe. He stood up and put both hands on my shoulders. That's all I've ever wanted to do. The next morning, I held the boards while he reinforced the back door. We worked side by side, and the rhythm of the hammer felt like something I'd been missing. He taught me how to angle the nails so they held stronger. You're a quick learner. I had a good teacher. He squeezed my shoulder. You're going to be a good man, Jesse. Just like me. I believed him. I helped him stack furniture against the side windows. I helped him check the locks. I stopped asking about the phones. I told B the blankets on the windows were a game, and she believed me because I believed it too. Then I heard them arguing through the bedroom door. Mom's voice. This has to stop. It's almost over. You hit me. I was scared. I won't do it again. You poured gasoline around the briefcase, David. Not the doors, not the windows, the briefcase. You're not protecting us. You're protecting whatever's in that case. If those documents get out, I go to prison for 20 years. And if someone lights a match, we all burn. The horror dropped through my stomach like a stone. I stumbled back from the door, terrified. The man who just told me I was going to be a good man had poured gasoline around a briefcase full of evidence, not around the doors to keep people out, around the thing he needed to destroy. I'd been holding boards for a man who was building a cage, not a fortress. I grabbed Mom's arm and pulled her into the bathroom. We're leaving, now. He'll catch us. I don't care. The gasoline is around the briefcase, not the doors. He's not protecting us. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I know. I've known since he poured it. I pulled her hands off her face. I waited 2 hours. The cabin was silent. Bea had fallen asleep with her head in my lap and her rabbit tucked under her chin. I stroked her hair and counted her breaths. 12, 13, 14. She trusted me completely. She didn't know about the nails or the padlock or the bruise on Mom's cheek. She thought we were were on vacation, and the windows were a game, and tomorrow we'd go fishing. I pressed my lips against the top of her head and made a promise I didn't say out loud. Dad had moved to the bedroom. I picked up Bea. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I grabbed Mom's hand, and we crept to the back door. I reached for the handle. The porch light came on. Dad was standing on the other side of the screen door. He'd gone out a window himself. He was holding a red gas can. I told you. He unscrewed the cap. Nobody leaves. He poured gasoline across the back porch. Then he went inside and poured a circle of it around the bed where the briefcase was. The smell hit me so hard my eyes watered, and Bea buried her face in my neck. He walked around the side of the cabin, pouring gasoline along the foundation. The glugging echoed in the dark. The smell was everywhere. Bea whimpered, "Jesse," into my shoulder. He came back to the front, holding a match. He wasn't shaking. His hand was steady. "Sit down, all of you. We're going to talk about this like a family. You just poured gasoline around the house because nobody listens." He struck the match and held it between two fingers. The flame was tiny and orange. It lit up his face. His eyes were flat and empty.
Miriši prekrasno posvuda.
Terror narrowed my vision to a tunnel. I was not getting my family out through a door. My feet carried me to the back bedroom, and I kicked the nailed window with everything I had. The first kick cracked the board. The second shattered the glass, and the wood splintered outward, and the nails screamed out of the frame. I sliced my palms open on the glass, and blood ran down my wrists, and I didn't feel it. "Go!" I shoved Mom through the window. She fell onto the grass and rolled. I handed Bea through, and Mom caught her. Glass tore my shirt as I dove through the frame. It raked across my ribs. I hit the ground and grabbed Bea and her rabbit, and we ran. The woods swallowed us. No moon, no path. Branches whipping my face and roots catching my feet, and Bea on my back with her arms around my neck so tight I could barely breathe. Mom was behind me gasping and stumbling. Gasoline soaked my clothes. Blood ran from my palms down the back of Bea's legs. She was crying into my neck, whispering, "Jesse, Jesse, Jesse," like my name was keeping her alive. We ran until my lungs burned. Bea's weight shifted on my back. My arms were screaming. I hitched her higher and kept running. Branches raked my face. I couldn't see the ground. Twice I stumbled and caught myself on tree trunks. The bark scraped my bleeding palms. The pain was white hot, but I couldn't stop. Behind us in the darkness, Jesse, Dad's voice, calm, conversational, like he was calling us in for dinner. "Come on back, buddy. It's cold out here." My hand found Mom's. I pulled her behind a fallen tree and pressed B against my chest. My hand clamped over her mouth. Bea's rabbit was pressed between us, and I could feel her heartbeat through the stuffed animal hammering against my ribs. "Jesse, Bea, let's go inside and talk about this." His footsteps crunched through the leaves. Slow, steady. He wasn't running. He was walking. A man on an evening stroll through the woods looking for his family like he'd misplaced his keys. The footsteps passed us, faded. I waited until I couldn't hear them, and then I waited longer. The truck. I whispered it into Mom's ear. He left the keys in the visor. We crept through the woods toward the dirt road. Every snap of a twig froze all three of us. Bea was silent now, her face buried in my shoulder, her rabbit crushed between us. The truck was parked where he'd left it. The driver door eased open, and I lifted Bea into the back seat, and Mom climbed in after her. I slid behind the wheel. I was 16. I'd driven exactly 4 times in my life. My hands were slippery with blood and shaking so hard I could barely grip the wheel. I turned the key, and the engine roared to life, and the headlights blasted the trees. I reached for the gear shift, and the radio crackled on with the engine. A voice filled the cab. "Authorities are now confirming that Grayson Chemical knew about the contamination for over 18 months and failed to report. CEO David Harlan is wanted for questioning in connection with the poisoning of the municipal water supply in Carlton, affecting an estimated 15,000 residents. Harlan has not been seen since Friday. Investigators believe he may have fled with company documents that could be key to the prosecution. Federal agents have issued a warrant." Mom reached over and turned it off. Her hand was shaking. "He said people were threatening us." "I know. He said someone threw a rock through our window. He said we had to hide or they'd hurt Bea." She pressed her hand over her mouth. "Were the threats even real?" I gripped the steering wheel. "Mom, the people looking for us aren't threats. They're investigators, federal agents. The people Dad said were coming to hurt us are coming to arrest him." The horror hit worse than anything in the cabin. I gripped the steering wheel, and the blood from my palms smeared the leather. My dad hadn't snapped. He He hadn't been protecting us. He'd poisoned 15,000 people, and then he'd driven his family to a cabin with a briefcase full of evidence and poured gasoline around both. The padlocks weren't to keep danger out. They were to keep witnesses in. The gasoline wasn't a contingency against attackers, and if his family was inside when it burned, that was a price he'd already decided to pay. He'd calculated every move: the cabin, the isolation, the phones in the lockbox, the rules, the gasoline. He was hiding his family because his name was about to be on every screen in the country, and he needed us where nobody could find us and ask us questions. Fresh start, that's what he'd called it. A fresh start. It was a cover story, and the cabin was the hiding place, and we were the loose ends. Headlights swept across the windshield. Someone on the road. I threw the truck in reverse, but the figure was already in front of us. Dad, standing in the headlight beams, the gas can at his feet. His shirt was wet with gasoline. His face was lit up white and flat in the high beams. He held up both hands, calm, still calm. Jesse, turn off the truck. His voice was steady, the same voice that read bedtime stories, the same voice that said fresh start in the car. I put it in park. My foot stayed on the brake. You don't understand what's happening. I just heard it on the radio. A flicker crossed his face. Just a flicker. He smoothed it. That's not the whole story. 15,000 people. It's complicated. You knew the water was poison and you let them drink it. I was trying to fix it. The board wouldn't listen. I tried to. You dragged us to a cabin and nailed the windows shut and hit Mom and poured gasoline around a house with your 7-year-old daughter inside. His jaw tightened, but he held the calm. His hands were still up. I wasn't going to light it. You lit a match. I was trying to make a point. He took a step forward and I put the truck in drive. That's when it broke. The calm shattered like glass. His hands came down and he slammed both palms on the hood so hard the whole truck shook and Bea screamed in the back seat. You are not driving away from me. He pounded the hood again. I am your father. His voice was a roar now, raw and cracked and nothing like the measured tone he'd used all night. He grabbed the side mirror and shook it and the truck rocked. I did everything for this family. The house and the school and the clothes and everything. And those documents are the only thing keeping me out of prison. If they find that briefcase, I go away for 20 years and you grow up without a father. He kicked the bumper, kicked it again. His face was red, veins bulging in his neck, spit flying. The man who hadn't raised his voice once in 12 hours was screaming so loud the trees seemed to pull back from him. Get out of the truck! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get! He stopped. Bea was sobbing in the back seat. The sound cut through his fury. He froze with his fist raised above the hood, his chest heaving. He looked through the windshield at his daughter's face, and something in him collapsed. His fist uncurled. His arm dropped. He stumbled backward. His legs gave out. He sat down hard.
Descarga Carácter ahí y descubre dónde te lleva la conversación.
on the dirt road in the headlights and pressed both hands over his face. The briefcase is still in the cabin. His voice was barely a whisper, and the grief cracked my chest open. With the gasoline, Mom made a sound from the passenger seat. Not a word, just a sound, because she understood now what I already knew. If we hadn't kicked through that window, he would have lit the match. Not to scare us back inside, to burn the evidence. With his family still in the building, the kind that comes from the very bottom of a person. The man who'd taught me to whittle by the lake. The man who'd handed me a knife and said every man should have one. He was sitting in the dirt in front of a truck, crying into his hands, and he looked so much smaller than he'd looked in the cabin. Bea climbed between the front seats. Her rabbit was soaked in my blood, and she was holding it by one ear, and she pressed her hand against the windshield. "Daddy?" Her voice broke the silence into pieces. "Daddy, your shirt is wet." "I know, baby. Can we go home now?" "We can't go home, baby." "Why?" "Because Daddy made a mistake." She pressed her whole hand flat against the glass. "A big mistake?" "Yeah, baby. A really big one." She pulled her hand back and looked at it. Then she looked at me. "Can you fix it?" "No, but I can get us somewhere safe." I put the truck in drive. Dad's eyes went wide. "Jesse, don't. Move. Please. Get out of the road." He didn't move. I eased the truck forward until the bumper was 6 inches from his legs. The headlights blinded him. I could see the sweat and the gasoline stain on his shirt and the terror in his eyes. His son was in control now, and he couldn't padlock a truck. He stepped aside. I drove. The dirt road was dark and endless. I drove with my bleeding holding hands gripped at 10 and 2 the way Dad had taught me in the church parking lot last summer. The irony almost made me laugh, except nothing was funny. Mom was sobbing in the passenger seat. Bea was in the back clutching her blood-soaked rabbit. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. I didn't know where that was, but it wasn't behind us. The relief of pavement under the tires almost made me cry. I drove until I found lights, then a gas station. The fluorescent glow was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Mom went inside and called 911 from the store phone. I sank onto the curb holding Bea. She was playing with her rabbit's ear and humming a song Mom used to sing at bedtime, and the normalcy of it in the middle of everything almost broke me. Jessie, yeah? Is Daddy coming? I pressed my face against the top of her head. Pine and gasoline and blood and the night air. No, Bea. Is he in trouble? Yeah. Big trouble? Yeah. She was quiet for a long time. Then she held up her rabbit. He got blood on him. I know. I'm sorry. It's okay. She tucked the rabbit under her arm. Jessie, yeah? You carried me the whole way. Yeah, thank you. Sirens grew in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees. The relief was so enormous I couldn't stand. I held my sister on a gas station curb and watched them come. The fishing knife was still in my pocket. The blood on my hands was drying. Somewhere behind us in the dark, a man who used to carry his daughter on his shoulders was standing alone in a cabin full of gasoline. The grief cracked open in my chest because I missed the man who taught me to whittle by the lake. That man was gone. I didn't know if he was still holding the match or if he'd finally let it go.